Depth is not something that appears in a moment of passion or in a dramatic exchange of emotions. Depth is not born in noise, nor is it awakened in environments filled with rush urgency or fear. Depth begins in stillness because stillness is the language of the inner world. It is where truth waits, where clarity rises, and where genuine connection grows roots before it ever appears in your behavior or your relationships. Stillness is the gateway to everything you seek to feel and everything you hope someone else will feel with you. Without stillness, the heart has no space to expand and the mind has no room to see clearly. When your life becomes too loud, externally or internally, you lose the ability to sense things deeply. You become reactive instead of responsive, tense instead of intentional, scattered instead of grounded. The modern world pushes you into constant movement, constant thinking, constant stimulation. But emotional depth does not survive in those conditions. It requires a quieter landscape. It requires pauses. It requires breathing space. When you cannot slow down enough to feel your own heart, you cannot expect someone else to feel it either. Depth is transmitted through presence, and presence begins with the ability to be still. Stillness is often misunderstood. Many believe it means doing nothing or withdrawing from life. But stillness is not inactivity. Stillness is awareness. Stillness is the ability to stand in the middle of your circumstances without being consumed by them. It is the ability to breathe even when you feel overwhelmed, to listen even when your emotions want to shout, to observe yourself even when your thoughts try to control you. Stillness is not about stopping the world around you. It is about guiding the world within you. When your inner world becomes stable, your presence becomes powerful. People feel it without you needing to announce it. Depth begins when your emotions are no longer chaotic waves but clear waters. You cannot guide a relationship from a place of emotional turbulence. You cannot build trust, intimacy, or understanding when your reactions come from unexamined fears. Stillness allows you to meet yourself first. When you sit with your emotions rather than escape them, you learn their language. You begin to understand why you feel pulled towards certain people, why specific patterns repeat, why some situations trigger you deeply. Without this inward understanding, you will always feel controlled by things you never took the time to quietly observe. Depth begins when self-awareness becomes your foundation instead of your last resort. Stillness transforms how you move in relationships. When you are still inside, you no longer need to chase for reassurance, validation, or attention. You begin to recognize the difference between desire and desperation, between connection and attachment, between love and fear. The quieter you become, the more you can sense the truth behind someone's words, the intentions behind their actions, and the emotional landscapes they are navigating. Depth in connection comes from the silent knowledge, knowing how to read energy, how to hold space, how to respond with intention instead of reacting from insecurity. When you cultivate stillness, you create emotional spaciousness. This spaciousness is what allows another person to open up around you. People feel more deeply when they are not crowded by pressure or expectation. Stillness in your energy tells someone there is no need to rush, no need to perform, no need to defend. It invites authenticity. It invites confession. It invites vulnerability. When your mind is calm and your emotions are steady, you become a place where depth naturally happens. You do not have to force it. You simply maintain the inner silence that allows it to grow. Stillness also teaches patience. When you are still, you understand that depth cannot be demanded. You realize that emotions need time to ripen, that trust needs time to form, that bonding needs time to strengthen. In stillness, you learn to release the urge to control outcomes. You begin to see that true connection is not something you obtain by pushing. It is something you receive by aligning with the right rhythm. The heart unfolds like a flower. You cannot pull its petals open without damaging it. Stillness teaches you to wait for the natural unfolding of emotional truth. In stillness, you reclaim your intuition. You begin to feel the difference between what feels right and what simply feels familiar. You notice signals that you used to ignore, because stillness heightens sensitivity without amplifying fear. You sense when to move closer and when to step back, when to speak and when silence communicates more, when to nurture a connection and when to protect your energy. You cannot hear these whispers of intuition in noise. Depth requires listening, and the quiet mind listens better than the restless one. Stillness changes your presence. People around you sense something uncommon. someone who is not consumed by chaos, someone who is not trying to prove anything, someone who knows how to exist peacefully with themselves. This is the type of presence that draws deeper emotions out of others. When you are grounded, others instinctively feel safer. When you are calm, others feel seen rather than judged. When you are composed, others feel invited to open their inner world. Stillness is magnetic because it represents stability in a world that constantly pulls people away from themselves. To cultivate stillness is to cultivate depth. And to cultivate depth is to awaken a new way of moving, loving, connecting, and understanding the world around you. Stillness becomes the container for emotional clarity, the foundation for profound connection, and the silent power that changes how deeply others can feel you and how deeply you can feel them. Presence is one of the most underestimated forces in human connection. Often, people believe that influence comes from how much they say, how well they argue, or how convincing their words sound. But true influence, the kind that reaches the heart rather than the mind, emerges not from persuasion but from presence. Presence is the silent language that communicates your energy, your intention, and your inner stability long before you speak. Presence is what people remember when the words have faded. It is what shapes the emotional tone of a relationship without effort, without force, without strategy. When you enter a room, your presence speaks before you introduce yourself. When you sit with someone, your presence determines whether they feel safe or guarded, open or closed, calm or restless. Presence is not something you can fake because presence reflects your inner world. A calm mind creates a calm presence. A restless mind creates a scattered presence. A confident heart creates a grounded presence. And a fearful heart creates a tense, uncertain presence. This is why presence communicates truth more accurately than persuasion ever could. Persuasion tries to shape someone's thoughts. Presence shapes the environment in which those thoughts arise. One tries to control, the other simply exists. Presence is more powerful because it is not dependent on external approval. It is not tied to outcomes, reactions, or expectations. When your presence is rooted in authenticity and inner stability, you influence others without needing to push or prove anything. They feel you instead of analyzing you. They experience your energy instead of questioning your motives. This is how deep connection forms, not through convincing someone, but through being someone. To develop a powerful presence, you must first learn to be fully where you are. Most people are physically present, but mentally elsewhere. They are thinking about the past, the future, the fears, the doubts. Their bodies are in the room, but their minds are wandering. This creates an energy that feels distant, distracted, or unavailable. Presence requires you to return home to yourself. It begins with the breath. When you breathe consciously, you anchor yourself in the moment. You create spaciousness inside your mind, and others feel this spaciousness even if they cannot explain it. They feel your attention. They feel your steadiness. They feel that you are not rushing, pushing, or trying to escape the moment. Presence is also expressed through listening. Most people listen only to respond. They listen while preparing their next argument or calculating their next move. But presence invites you to listen without agenda. When you listen with your full attention, without judgment or impatience, the person in front of you feels something rare. They feel seen. They feel understood. They feel respected. This is a stronger form of influence than persuasion because it softens defenses. It opens the heart. It creates trust. When someone feels that you are truly present with them, they naturally reveal more of themselves. They feel safe to express what they usually hide. This emotional openness cannot be achieved through persuasive words. It is only awakened by presence. Presence also means being in control of your inner world. When you are emotionally grounded, you don't react impulsively. You don't take things personally. You don't crumble under pressure. You become someone who can hold space for tension, confusion, or conflict without losing yourself. This stability becomes magnetic. People gravitate toward those who can remain composed when situations become heavy. It becomes a signal of emotional strength, maturity, and reliability. Persuasion might convince someone temporarily, but presence is what earns long-term trust. When you cultivate presence, you speak less but communicate more. Your silence becomes meaningful because it is filled with awareness, not emptiness. When you do speak, your words carry weight because they come from a place of intention rather than insecurity. People feel the difference between someone who speaks to fill a void and someone who speaks from clarity. Words supported by presence become impactful. Words without presence dissolve quickly and lose their power. Presence shapes attraction as well. When your energy is steady and non-reactive, you naturally create emotional polarity. You become someone who does not chase, does not cling, does not panic. Instead, you move with calm purpose. You allow connections to unfold without pressure. This calm confidence draws others toward you because it signals that you are not dependent on their attention. You are connected to yourself first. And this self-connection is what creates a magnetic pull. Persuasion tries to make someone choose you. Presence makes them feel drawn to you without understanding why. Presence is also deeply tied to boundaries. When you are present with yourself, you can feel when something is misaligned. You can sense when your energy is being drained, when your values are being compromised, when your intuition signals discomfort. Presence allows you to act on these sensations early rather than waiting until emotions escalate. This ability to respond rather than react creates emotional clarity that others respect. They feel your boundaries not because you shout them, but because your presence reflects them. To embody presence, you must slow down your reactions and increase your awareness. You must learn to observe yourself in real time, your posture, your breath, your tone, your emotional state. The more aware you are of yourself, the more others become aware of your depth. Presence is not about performing calmness, it is about cultivating inner alignment. When your inner world becomes harmonious, your outer presence becomes powerful without effort. Presence speaks louder than persuasion because persuasion tries to change others, while presence changes you. And when you change your inner state, the world mirrors it back to you. People respond differently. Conversations deepen. Energy becomes more synchronized. Connections become more honest. Influence becomes natural rather than forced. Presence is the foundation upon which deep understanding, true attraction, and meaningful relationships are built. Your authenticity is one of the most subtle yet powerful forces in human connection. It is not about perfection, charm, or performance. It is about being real, being true, and being fully present in who you are. When you show yourself honestly, without masks or pretense, you create a resonance that touches the emotional core of others. This resonance awakens emotional memory, the deep, often unspoken recognition of experiences, feelings, and longings that exist within another person. Emotional memory is a silent language that cannot be forced, explained, or fabricated, and authenticity is the key that opens it. When someone is authentic, they communicate more than their words. Their gestures, their tone, their presence, all convey an unspoken truth about their inner world. A person who pretends, performs, or hides parts of themselves may capture attention temporarily, but they rarely leave a lasting emotional imprint. Emotional memory is not stirred by surface charm or clever words, it is awakened by recognition. When another person sees something in you that is unfeigned, that is aligned with your inner truth, it resonates with a part of themselves they may have long forgotten or buried. Authenticity becomes the mirror through which they remember themselves, their desires, their vulnerability, and their capacity for feeling. Authenticity begins with self-awareness. You cannot be genuinely authentic if you are unaware of who you are or if you are constantly performing for external validation. Emotional memory is awakened when your inner alignment is clear, when your presence is unshaken by fear of judgment, and when your expressions are sincere. This does not mean exposing every thought, every fear, or every flaw recklessly. It means understanding yourself deeply enough to act and communicate from your truth rather than from expectation. The more grounded you are in your authenticity, the more your presence carries the power to unlock hidden emotional depths in others. Authenticity also involves embracing vulnerability. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as weakness, but in reality, it is the conduit through which emotional memory flows. When you allow yourself to be seen in your raw, unpolished form, you awaken memories in others of moments when they, too, were open, exposed, and fully human. These are moments of clarity, intimacy, and recognition that linger far longer than any clever persuasion. Emotional memory responds to honesty because it recognizes itself in your presence. It recalls the sensation of being understood, of being witnessed without judgment, and of being safe enough to reveal the hidden layers of the heart. When you are authentic, you stop trying to control how others perceive you. This freedom from manipulation creates a space for emotional resonance that cannot exist when you are performing. People sense when you are genuine because they experience a lack of tension in your energy. Your expressions, gestures, and words align with your internal state. This alignment communicates a subtle truth that you are present, unafraid, and open. And when a person encounters someone who is truly present in this way, it stirs emotions that have been dormant. They remember times when they themselves felt safe enough to express their authentic selves, times when connection was real, and times when they were fully alive emotionally. Authenticity awakens these memories effortlessly. Authenticity also demands courage. It requires the willingness to face rejection, misunderstanding, or disapproval without altering your core. Emotional memory responds to courage because it has an instinctive recognition of honesty over pretense. When someone witnesses another person embracing themselves fully, including their imperfections, it triggers a recognition of similar qualities in themselves. This is why authenticity often evokes profound emotional responses. It reminds people of who they truly are or who they long to be. It evokes recognition, longing, and even nostalgia for emotional states that may have been suppressed or ignored. Authenticity deepens trust. Trust is not built through charm, manipulation, or social skill. It is cultivated through consistency and transparency. When someone consistently expresses themselves authentically, their emotional signals become reliable, predictable, and safe. This safety encourages emotional memory to surface because the person feels secure enough to reflect inwardly and access their own experiences. Emotional memory is awakened not in fleeting attraction, but in the sustained recognition of truth over time. The authentic person becomes a touchstone for emotions that might otherwise remain dormant, unacknowledged, or unexpressed. Authenticity also impacts subtle communication, which is often more powerful than verbal language. Eye contact, posture, tone of voice, and micro-expressions all carry authenticity. When these elements align with your inner state, they transmit signals that the conscious mind may not even register, but that the heart recognizes instantly. Emotional memory responds to these signals because it is rooted in embodied experience, not in intellectual understanding. People do not remember words as vividly as they remember the energy and emotional truth behind them. Authenticity awakens those embodied memories, the way they felt loved, seen, safe, or inspired. In practice, cultivating authenticity requires observing yourself without judgment, understanding your emotional landscape, and expressing your truth in alignment with your inner knowing. It means choosing self-honesty over social convenience, courage over fear, and alignment over manipulation. When you embody authenticity, every interaction becomes a potential catalyst for awakening emotional memory. You become more than a person in someone's life. You become a living reminder of truth, of openness, and of what it feels like to be deeply human. Authenticity awakens emotional memory because it is unrepeatable and unmanufactured. It bypasses the filters of logic and enters the emotional subconscious directly. People respond to authenticity at the level of feeling, where memories of love, connection, longing, and trust are stored. These memories can surface unexpectedly. A gaze, a gesture, a moment of silence, triggered by the simple fact that you are genuine. Your presence becomes a vessel for recall, for recognition, for emotional awakening. When someone experiences your authentic self, they do not merely hear your words, they feel echoes of their own emotional history, the depths of experiences that shaped them, and the hidden spaces within themselves they rarely explore. In relationships, whether fleeting or enduring, authenticity is what makes someone unforgettable. It is what transforms ordinary interactions into profound encounters. When you show up fully, without masks or pretenses, you invite another person to remember what it is like to be truly alive in their emotions. Emotional memory is a silent companion, a subtle guide, and an unspoken response that awakens naturally in the presence of truth. It is not something you can demand or teach. It is something you embody and allow to ripple through the spaces you inhabit. Softness is often misunderstood in the world of human relationships and personal development. Many people equate softness with weakness, fragility, or passivity. They believe that to be strong is to be unyielding, tough, and impermeable, while softness is a vulnerability to be hidden or corrected. Yet true strength has little to do with rigidity, force, or domination. Real strength is rooted in the ability to remain open, receptive, and compassionate even in the face of difficulty. Softness is a form of strength because it requires courage, self-awareness, and resilience that cannot exist in hardness or aggression. It is the quiet power of flexibility, emotional intelligence, and inner alignment that allows one to navigate the world without losing oneself. Softness begins with awareness. To be soft does not mean you allow everything to affect you. It means you understand your emotions deeply enough to respond rather than react. A soft person is not reactive, they are present. They feel their emotions without being consumed by them. They understand the currents of tension, fear, and desire within themselves and are able to move with these currents rather than fight against them. This level of self-awareness requires strength because it is far easier to become rigid, defensive, or reactive when life pressures build. Softness requires standing in your center while the world pushes, pulls, or tests your boundaries. Softness is also a form of resilience. When you allow yourself to be soft, you expose your heart to the possibility of pain, rejection, or misunderstanding. Most people avoid this exposure by building walls or masks of hardness. Yet, choosing softness despite the risks is a demonstration of extraordinary inner strength. It shows that you trust in your own capacity to navigate difficulty, to hold space for emotions, and to remain aligned with your truth even when external conditions are harsh. Softness does not mean passivity. It means moving through life with deliberate compassion, empathy, and awareness. This form of strength is unshakable because it is not dependent on control, force, or domination. It is rooted in understanding, presence, and choice. Softness also allows for deeper connection with others. A soft presence communicates openness, safety, and emotional availability. People instinctively recognize when someone is soft because it resonates with their own need to be understood and accepted. When you respond to conflict, vulnerability, or emotional expression with softness rather than hardness, you create an environment where honesty, trust, and depth can flourish. Softness becomes magnetic because it signals strength without aggression. It signals that you are capable of holding yourself together while holding others in their full emotional truth. This ability to remain steady in the midst of another's emotional intensity is a rare form of power. Emotional strength through softness also involves boundaries. True softness does not mean allowing yourself to be mistreated or taken advantage of. It is not the absence of discernment. Rather, it is the ability to hold your boundaries with grace, compassion, and calm. Softness allows you to say no without anger, to protect your energy without resentment, and to disengage from what is harmful without bitterness. Hardness may force others away, but softness invites respect because it communicates strength rooted in self-awareness rather than fear. It takes inner courage to maintain clarity and kindness simultaneously, to hold space for yourself and others without collapsing into chaos. Softness is transformative in the way it interacts with conflict. A soft person does not seek to dominate, debate, or overpower others, yet they are not passive participants either. Their strength allows them to navigate disagreements with patience and insight. They can listen deeply, respond thoughtfully, and remain aligned with their truth while honoring the perspective of others. This approach to conflict is far more effective than aggression because it disarms tension rather than escalating it. Softness requires confidence, the confidence to trust your own voice and the confidence to remain calm even when provoked. This confidence is a profound form of strength that is invisible to those who measure power only by force or dominance. Softness is also a form of endurance. Life constantly tests emotional and physical resilience, often through situations that are unpredictable, unfair, or painful. To maintain softness in these circumstances requires discipline and inner fortitude. It is easy to harden in response to challenge, to build walls, to become defensive, to cut off sensitivity. Yet true strength lies in the ability to maintain receptivity and compassion while facing adversity. Softness endures because it does not rely on external conditions for stability. It draws its strength from an inner alignment that is unshaken by chaos, criticism, or uncertainty. Softness cultivates clarity and insight. When the mind is rigid, judgment and fear dominate perception. When the heart is hardened, emotional awareness diminishes. Softness allows you to observe life without distortion, to respond without aggression, and to feel without overwhelm. This clarity becomes a form of power because it allows you to act decisively from wisdom rather than from impulse. A soft person understands the dynamics of relationships, the subtleties of energy, and the timing of action. Their strength is visible not in force, but in the impact of their presence, the resonance of their words, and the depth of their influence. Softness is a form of leadership. Those who lead through softness do not coerce, manipulate, or demand. They inspire, guide, and influence by example. Their emotional strength and clarity create a field in which others feel safe, understood, and motivated to show up fully. The world often mistakes softness for passivity because it is subtle, quiet, and patient, yet this subtlety is precisely why it is powerful. It transforms resistance into receptivity, tension into calm, and confusion into understanding. It is a strength that shapes outcomes without forcing them, that touches hearts without dominating them, that inspires loyalty without demanding it. Finally, softness connects to authenticity. To be soft is to be willing to show the full spectrum of your emotional self. The tenderness, the empathy, the vulnerability, and the openness, without apology. This authenticity is a display of strength because it requires the courage to reveal yourself as you truly are. The world may reject softness, may misinterpret it, may attempt to exploit it, yet to maintain it despite these possibilities is a testament to inner power. Softness embodies the paradox of strength. It is flexible yet unbreakable, gentle yet unwavering, receptive yet grounded, vulnerable yet resilient, and in this balance, it becomes a force that shapes connection, influence, and transformation in ways that hardness never could. Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls, limitations, or acts of separation. Many people fear that setting boundaries will make them appear rigid, unkind, or unapproachable. Yet, boundaries are not about exclusion. They are about clarity, self-awareness, and integrity. Boundaries are the framework through which respect emerges, and respect is the soil in which emotional and relational depth can grow. Without boundaries, interactions can become chaotic, energy can be drained, and true connection can never flourish. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define who you are, what you value, and what you will allow into your life. They are the first step toward creating meaningful engagement that goes beyond superficiality. To understand the power of boundaries, it is essential to recognize that they are an expression of self-respect. When you define what is acceptable and what is not, you communicate to the world that your time, energy, and emotional well-being matter. This is not arrogance or selfishness, it is awareness. People who lack boundaries often find themselves exhausted, resentful, or unfulfilled because they constantly accommodate others while neglecting their own needs. Boundaries prevent this depletion. They create a stable foundation from which you can engage authentically, respond thoughtfully, and connect with integrity. When others see that you honor yourself, they naturally begin to honor you as well. Boundaries also teach others how to treat you. Without clear limits, people are left to guess what is acceptable, and often their assumptions lead to misunderstandings or disrespect. When you set boundaries, you provide a framework for interaction. You clarify what behavior, words, or energy is welcome and what is not. This clarity cultivates respect because it removes ambiguity. People feel guided by your standards, not trapped by them. Respect is not earned through intimidation, manipulation, or force. It is cultivated through the consistent demonstration of self-awareness and integrity. Boundaries are the practical manifestation of this self-awareness. They communicate your values without aggression and establish your presence without hostility. Boundaries require courage. They often invite discomfort, confrontation, or challenge because they assert your individuality in a world that frequently encourages conformity. Yet courage is at the heart of depth. Emotional and relational depth is born when individuals engage from a place of clarity rather than compromise. When you enforce boundaries, you demonstrate the strength to remain aligned with your truth even in the face of external pressure. This alignment fosters a magnetic authenticity. People feel safe around someone who knows themselves, honors their limits, and maintains consistency. They are drawn to the steadiness, the integrity, and the self-possession that boundaries naturally create. Respect emerges naturally from boundaries. When someone sees that you will not tolerate what diminishes you, they begin to value your presence more deeply. Respect is not superficial politeness. It is recognition of your worth and recognition of the space you hold in the world. People respect those who respect themselves, and this respect creates fertile ground for genuine connection. Without respect, relationships remain shallow, transactional, or conditional. Respect allows people to engage with you fully, knowing that the relationship is balanced, safe, and meaningful. When respect exists, emotional walls drop, vulnerability becomes possible, and depth emerges organically. Boundaries also cultivate self-knowledge. In determining what you will and will not allow, you are forced to examine your values, priorities, and emotional needs. This self-exploration is essential for depth because depth cannot exist without self-awareness. People who fail to establish boundaries often lack clarity about themselves and therefore cannot invite others to a meaningful interaction. Boundaries are mirrors of the soul. They reflect what matters, what nurtures growth, and what maintains integrity. When others see your boundaries, they witness a person who is whole and self-assured, a person capable of depth because they are not scattered by uncertainty or compromise. Boundaries improve communication. When you articulate your limits clearly and calmly, you teach others the language of mutual respect. They learn how to engage without overstepping, how to interact without assumption, and how to participate in a connection that honors both parties. This clarity reduces friction, prevents misunderstandings, and creates emotional space for vulnerability. Depth requires this emotional space. It requires interactions that are not clouded by tension, resentment, or confusion. Boundaries clear the way for presence, attentiveness, and genuine responsiveness, conditions under which emotional resonance can flourish. Boundaries also enhance intimacy. While it may seem counterintuitive, limitation often deepens connection. By defining where you begin and end, you allow others to step into your presence with awareness, intention, and respect. True intimacy does not thrive in chaos or over-familiarity. It thrives in the conscious choice to enter another person's life with care, attention, and alignment. Boundaries invite this conscious engagement. They create a rhythm in relationships, spaces of closeness balanced with spaces of autonomy, that fosters trust, authenticity, and meaningful interaction. Boundaries and respect together form the foundation of relational depth. When people respect your limits, they treat you with consideration, attentiveness, and reverence. When respect exists, fear, judgment, or superficiality diminishes. This creates a space where honesty, vulnerability, and emotional exploration can occur. Depth is not something that can be forced. It grows naturally in environments of clarity, integrity, and mutual regard. Boundaries provide the structural integrity, and respect nurtures the emotional conditions for this depth to arise. In practice, maintaining boundaries requires vigilance, reflection, and adjustment. Life is dynamic, and relationships evolve. Boundaries must evolve as well. They are not rigid walls, but flexible frameworks that honor your growth and the growth of those around you. When you manage boundaries with awareness and consistency, respect deepens. People learn to appreciate your steadiness, your intentionality, and your presence. They begin to mirror the care and alignment you demonstrate, creating a feedback loop of respect and authenticity that allows relational depth to flourish. Boundaries create respect because they demonstrate self-awareness, integrity, and courage. Respect creates depth because it provides safety, trust, and the emotional space necessary for vulnerability, reflection, and genuine connection. When both exist in balance, relationships move beyond surface interaction into the profound terrain of meaningful emotional exchange, understanding, and resonance. A love is often described in fleeting, poetic terms: passion, desire, infatuation, but these experiences are only surface expressions of a deeper potential. Love, in its fullest form, is not accidental, impulsive, or blind. Love becomes deep when it becomes conscious. Conscious love is intentional, aware, and present. It is a state of being in which the heart and mind move in harmony, where emotions are observed without being controlled by them, and where connection arises from awareness rather than habit, expectation, or projection. Depth in love is not measured by intensity alone. It is measured by clarity, presence, and understanding. Conscious love begins with self-awareness. To love deeply, you must first understand your own emotions, needs, and patterns. Without this awareness, love is often reactive. You attach to someone based on desire, fear, or unhealed wounds. You may become consumed by longing, jealousy, or expectation. These emotional patterns obscure true connection and prevent depth from arising. Conscious love requires that you examine your own heart honestly, acknowledging both light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, desire and limitation. Only from this place of inner clarity can love extend outward in a form that is grounded, stable, and transformative. When love becomes conscious, it is free from projection. Projection occurs when you expect another person to fulfill needs that belong to you alone, or when you interpret their actions based on your insecurities rather than their reality. Unconscious love clings to illusions, attaches to fantasy, and reacts to perceived slights. Conscious love sees clearly. It recognizes the humanity of the other, acknowledging their imperfections, their boundaries, and their autonomy. It does not demand compliance, approval, or constant reassurance. Instead, it meets the other person where they are while remaining rooted in your own truth. This clarity allows love to deepen because it is no longer entangled in the chaos of expectation. Presence is central to conscious love. To love deeply, you must be fully present with yourself and with the other person. Presence is more than physical proximity. It is an alignment of attention, awareness, and emotional attunement. When you are present, you listen not just to words, but to tone, intention, and subtle cues. You observe without judgment, respond without reactivity, and engage with patience and compassion. Presence allows emotional resonance to occur naturally. Depth emerges in the spaces where awareness meets feeling, where attention is given without distraction, and where connection is cultivated with intention rather than default patterns. Conscious love also involves responsibility. Responsibility in love does not mean control or ownership over the other person. It means taking accountability for your own emotions, actions, and choices within the relationship. It requires recognizing how your energy affects the other, how your reactions shape the interaction, and how your intentions align with your behavior. Depth in love grows when both parties are responsible for their own hearts while respecting the autonomy of the other. Love is not a transaction. It is a shared field of awareness where both individuals are conscious participants rather than passive reactors. Emotional regulation is another pillar of conscious love. Love often triggers intense feelings: fear, longing, desire, anger, or grief. Unconscious love reacts to these triggers with blame, projection, or withdrawal. Conscious love observes the triggers without being controlled by them. It allows you to respond with clarity, patience, and understanding. This regulation does not suppress emotion. It transforms it into insight. By witnessing your emotional responses, you learn about your own patterns, your attachments, and your areas for growth. Conscious love cultivates depth because it does not let emotion dictate the relationship. It allows emotion to guide awareness and choice. Conscious love is rooted in intention. It is a deliberate choice to engage fully, to honor the connection, and to act in alignment with shared values. This intention is not superficial or performative. It is embedded in every action, word, and gesture. Depth arises when both individuals operate from this conscious intention rather than drifting passively through circumstance. When love is conscious, even ordinary interactions, silences, glances, shared experiences carry meaning. Each moment becomes an opportunity for presence, understanding, and connection, rather than a chance to react unconsciously or fill a void. Boundaries are essential in conscious love. Boundaries are not limitations on love, they are the structure that supports it. They define what is acceptable and what is harmful, what nurtures growth and what diminishes it. Conscious love respects boundaries, their own and the others, because it recognizes that depth cannot exist where autonomy is violated or where needs are ignored. Boundaries create safety, safety creates trust, and trust creates the fertile ground in which deep love can flourish. When love becomes conscious, it navigates these boundaries with care, awareness, and respect, allowing connection to evolve without compromising integrity or authenticity. Conscious love also requires observation of patterns. Depth grows when you notice recurring behaviors, emotional triggers, and relational dynamics, not to judge or blame, but to understand and navigate with clarity. Unconscious love repeats cycles of attachment, conflict, or avoidance. Conscious love sees these cycles, learns from them, and acts with intention to create a more harmonious and profound connection. Depth arises not from avoidance or ignorance, but from insight, reflection, and informed engagement. Finally, conscious love transforms relationships from a series of transactions into a living, evolving experience. Love becomes a shared space of presence, trust, respect, and vulnerability. It awakens emotional awareness, fosters growth, and cultivates a bond that is resilient, nurturing, and profoundly human. When love becomes conscious, it moves beyond surface attraction, fleeting passion, or dependency, and enters the domain of connection that is sustained by understanding, choice, and intentional engagement.